Yeah, we're live. We're live. We're live. We're back. We're back. Hey, everyone. It's me, Henry Barajas, that you're watching. Contrary to Henry, this is a thing that I do when I can, mainly to promote self-promote my own stuff, which is Helm Greycastle came out this last Wednesday. I don't know if you were able to go to your comic shop. Your city might be shut down still, so you can't go safely. I understand, but great time to launch a comic book during the pandemic, right? But the world keeps turning. I feel great. It's been a long time since I felt great because I haven't rode my bike in like 2 weeks, and today I went all the way up to Griffith Park Observatory. I feel so much better. Went and signed some copies of Helm Greycastle today at Neil Adams has a comic shop that's like so close to me, and another place called the Perky Nerd down in Burbank. So there's a lot of comic stores in the Los Angeles area that has signed Helm Greycastle #1 copies. So whoever that came, oh, here we go. We got Liana Kangas, who is just, a bright, shining star who's going to one day be my boss. And that's you, Liana. Very, very. I got my. Oh, you know what? I got a special guest today because I try not to. I try not to do these things alone. I try to have an audience of people. Try to have people here, and I try to have people that I like, people that are doing stuff in the comic book industry, and that interest me, that make me consider quitting altogether because they're doing so good, and I don't think I'll ever be as good. And this is. And Liana's in the comments and watching. Thank you so much, Liana. I know you'll be my boss someday. Don't worry. But today is my special guest is someone who I've we have a lot of mutual friends outside of comics, and someone who it's pretty it's someone who I've seen live. Didn't even know he was a comic book guy, and now we are friends. And I can't thank you. Magpie's call. Thank you. I hope that does help your D&D game. And we're gonna talk about Helm, and we're gonna talk about other stuff. But let me bring my special guest. And that's Jono.
Hello.
Hey, Jono. How do you say your last name? I don't want to mispronounce it.
I was waiting to see if you were gonna say it.
I could see you waiting.
It's a Diener.
Diener. Yeah, because Barajas, no one can pronounce it, So I understand how people probably butcher your last name or make fun of it,
So I tell people all the time, no one ever said any wiener joke when I was growing up, which is, I think that's why I am the way I am today. I made it through so much, what would have been absolute torment in my childhood. My name literally rhymes with wiener. But my brother's name is Nick Diener.
Nick Diener?
Dick Wiener all the time.
Dick Wiener. Oh, dude, that is a cool. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm good. So everything's fine.
And oh my gosh, I can't believe Jen Vaughn, artist behind the role-playing aspect of Helm Greycastle's watching. Thank you, Jen. Jen's one of the best. I've known Jen for like 10 years, and it shocked me that this was Jen's first imaged credit, and it's long overdue. So I'm glad that, I like you. I'm sure you have goals in the comic book industry. And, I think having an image comic is always something everybody wants, right? I mean, maybe not you. I don't know.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, see?
Words in my mouth.
Exactly. So I'm glad that we got Jen in. And one of my favorite stories that I have with Jen Vaughn is, did you ever get to go to Emerald City?
I was supposed to go and I never got to. So it was actually going to be this year.
Like 4 or 5 years ago, there was sometimes you get into a show early, like a day or two early, because it's cheaper, or it's just any, any like, for whatever reason you end up at a show a day early. So like Emerald City was like Thursday through Sunday, which I hate those kinds of shows. And so I flew in on Wednesday, and everybody's like staying at the Sheraton except me, because I would stay at a hostel down the street because I had to get my own place when I would go to Emerald City. And there was a big convention that was wrapping up that was for DocuSign. And I don't know if you've ever used DocuSign or where, but it's the digital signing service that like you might use for like signing your lease or like, documents online. And there were so many people, it was packed. And like you see all these awkward comic book people like trying to like find a seat, but there's like all these power suit like boss lady kind of type people around. And then like, yeah, here we go. We get so like you go to the bar, and the bartenders, who they know a lot of comic book people because a lot of us have been going like every year for a decade, and they're like, here you go. And I'm like, oh, I want to pay. And they're like, no, don't worry about it. And you're just like, what? They're like, they booked the bar. And all of a sudden, this guy in this like little like suit, like without the jacket, he gets on the table. And this was the year Wolf of Wall Street came out. And he's like, all the drinks are on DocuSign. And the whole hotel just roars. Just huge. Yeah. Oh, was he wearing? Oh yeah. We're all in our denim jackets, and everybody's excited.
All the freaks versus the squares,
There you go. Everyone's excited, and then all of a sudden, like the worst thing you could do, Jono, or anyone, is say open bar in a room full of cartoonists.
Blood just splatters everywhere.
It's like invincible. Heads just pop like pimples. And everybody's getting like double cups, double glasses, bottles of wine, bottles of champagne. I think the comic book industry nearly bankrupt DocuSign that night. And everyone the next day on the show floor, I mean, I wasn't, thankfully, because I knew if I showed up to my like post hungover or drunk, I would probably not have a job. But so many people were so drunk and hungover the next day, and Jen and I would go and get double like fist and like give our friends drinks. And there's a really cool picture of us together. That's the point of what I'm trying to get to, is this long-winded story. I'm so sorry.
What they say is, a photo's worth 1,000 words. So you just gave us 1,000, but if you have a photo, you shorter podcast.
I could have put the picture up, and I would have said that's it.
I would have been cool. Anyway.
Dude, hey, this is cool. Like, we've talked to each other on Discord, in our partners. Shout out to the partners. Discord chats, but it's never been just you and me. So I'm really excited. And I just want to preference this. A lot of people, I'm a huge coffee drinker, and you started a coffee company called Rootless Coffee. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So like you were talking about with having a comic in the pandemic and trying to promote it and all that stuff, doing a coffee company, a thing you ingest during the middle of a pandemic, is also a very strange thing. But my friend Sean and I, we were both exiting different companies. I had coffee and marketing background. He had like super high-end bar coffee, like all of that world. So when we came together, we just started venting about like, why do people always do this? Why do they think this happens all the time? And it got to the point where the more we started venting about stuff, we both looked at each other and we're like, can we do that? Can we do the thing that everyone talks about and then never does? And so I don't know if you've been on one of the Discords with us where I drink a bunch of coffee and I start going in like marketing psycho brain. But I was literally going crazy because all I could think about was, what if I just make people see something differently in coffee for once. So you've seen it in craft breweries and stuff where they have really interesting artwork, really cool, eye-catching stuff. But my background as a musician and a comic writer, I am very literally working with artists all the time. And I myself wish I could be an artist, but I can't. So I'm fortunately pretty good at giving direction on that kind of stuff. So I got to the point where I just started venting at Sean, the co-owner of Rootless, which ended up, that's what we called it. I was just like, I know a bunch of comic artists. What if we just have them do the bags? But the bags are different colors. And like I started just going nuts. And he's like, yeah. And no one's ever just said yeah to ideas before. So then we started
your ideas.
Yeah, right. But I mean, all of us have worked in places in our past where you are really nervous about bringing up something to someone, and maybe they're like this higher level person or whatever, right. And you're going to get shot down, so you just shy away. So it got to the point where every single time now, I write down every weird idea I have. Sean and I will talk about it, and then we do it. So it's everything from so far in 6 months, we've only been a company. We've had collaboration, cookies, beer, cider, candle, t-shirts. Like, it's just, yes. Jen, you got the joggers? Yes, that's awesome.
Apparently that's all she has.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. Like, I'm approaching everything like a DIY punk band. And because it's an actual business where people actually like the product, unlike a comic or an album, which are very subjective things, you take all of your passion in it and you put it in a thing that people want, right? So it's that one release where it's like, I get to sneak attack everyone with the things I like and just throw it in there. So Liana, for example, is one of our artists. Matt Emmons, Sally Cantorino, Kelly Williams, Emily Pearson, my friend Mackenzie from Flint, Michaela Jane. There's just a ton of awesome people that immediately just said yes when we pitched the idea to them. I've always wanted to do a coffee. That's what everyone says, which is what we said when we started the thing. So we have a bunch of crazy plans in the works, and we keep throwing new ideas and doing all that kind of stuff. But long story short, super fun. So thanks for bringing it up.
We should have just put a picture, because we would have saved all that.
Well, the thing is,
we should just
that story was so good that a picture would have
the difference between mine and yours. Yeah. Dude, no, I did buy a bag. You were kind enough to send me a bag, and I bought another bag. And I love Twin Peaks. Did you send me? Do I need to sign for it? Because I have a package coming that I need to sign for.
I don't know. Probably
and
not.
I have to. Okay, I hope not. But so I recently invested in a pour over thing, and I've always been like the automatic drip kind of guy,
Yeah, can I pause you for a second? What do you mean? What kind of pour over thing did you get?
It's one of those REI camper ones.
Okay. So there's, are you familiar with the Chemex? It's like the big glass beaker looking thing.
Yeah, those.
So there's like all these ones that are slightly different. So I don't know if you went like full like snooty guy, or if you're like, I got a cool multi-use thing.
It's definitely practical. I'm not a snob. I will, if I could, I would drink 7-Eleven coffee every day. So my Nana used to give me coffee when I was 6 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I had this little green cup, and she'd give me some milk and some coffee, and we'd drink it. And then one day I went to school, and my teachers were like, you shouldn't smoke and you shouldn't drink coffee because it stunts your growth. And I went home. I went back to my Nana, and she was like, here's some coffee. And I said, Nana, I can't drink coffee anymore. And she said, that's bullshit. Like, you look at your cousin Andy, who my cousin Andy was not like blood related to me. He was 6'2". And she's like, look at him. He's tall, and he's been drinking coffee since he was your age. Like, and I was like, oh, you're right, Nana. I should just keep drinking coffee. So
you would have been 7 feet, and then
I would have been 7 feet tall if I would have. And I used to brew coffee at school when I was in middle school, and I had a teacher who had a coffee machine. And I would spend, if I couldn't get access to coffee, I would spend my lunch money going to a coffee shop before going to school.
And where'd you grow up again? Was it?
I grew up in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah. And how I've seen you perform, but it was in Phoenix with Bayside, which is my favorite band of all time. I'm going to ask you to tell me what that was like to tour with them, because they're the best in my opinion. I love them. I mean, I started to listen to your band because of them, and I've listened to a lot of bands because of them. But was there were they shitty, or was it cool?
I love the idea of just being like, oh, super cool, they took us on tour. I hate them. They're shitty. No, they like kind of became one of our like best band friends because. So very super fast backstory on my band. We started out really young, super fast punk rock stuff. Over time, we got way heavy into Weezer, slowed down and became more melodic. And then it was more of like a melodic, like Foo Fighters, Fat Records kind of mixed thing. The whole time, us realizing, yes, Liana, Henry did say Bayside. That's who we're talking about. So it got to the point where bands like Bayside were like, always doing their thing. And I remember they played some show where I didn't even watch them play. I was outside talking to someone during it. And it was back when like 50 people would go to their shows.
Right.
But then over time, they just kept doing it and writing good songs. It was like very like Alkaline Trio in that world of like, it's like not pop punk, but it's dark, but it has its own like rock thing, whatever. So our band got to a sonic point where we could be like, oh, like Motion City Soundtrack makes sense. Bayside makes sense. Like we're not these like aggro, fast, punky kids anymore. So I don't remember how it came about, but someone from their team reached out. Apparently they already listened to us from something else. And then
was it Steve?
The TM Steve?
Yeah.
No, it was I forgot who it was, but someone in the ballpark. I'm pretty sure it was Nick. Like Nick is my dude.
Same. Basically. Yeah.
And one of the things that like I always loved was he's wildly down to earth. So his whole thing was like, yeah, I like punk, whatever. And then they would just take bands that they liked. And
oh yeah,
super insider stuff is bands don't really do that in music. Their agents tell them who to bring out because they have an album and it'll pay off later. And like, it's all favors and stuff. But Bayside like actually wanted us, which was crazy. And then they hung out with us and they were actually around and present and fun and cool. And that ended up being like one of our favorite tours. Was it the one, it was Bayside, Silverstein, Polar Bear Club, us, and then Sharks, this band from the UK. I think that was.
I remember that. Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, they're one of those bands where all good people make good music and they're still going, which is sweet.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I discovered them when I was like 17 and 18 years old. And I saw them right after like the Beats had passed away, and then like right into Walking Wounded started touring. And they were already popular then. And I didn't really know anyone in Tucson that liked them. And when they did come, that was who everyone was there to see. So I had made some friends, lifelong friends that way. And I still have lifelong friends that I still know, like Spencer, who's in New York. He went as Jufro on our like Bayside. That was his screen name, but he knows who you are.
You know Spencer?
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked in the comments or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I used to see him all the time. But that was one of those things where I knew him from, it was that or Last FM or some, I forgot where we first started talking, but that was bye, Liana, love you.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
But it was like one of my favorite things though, where you meet someone in line for something or
right.
you see them literally online or whatever it is, but you end up being their bud forever. It's sweet.
There you go. Yeah. And my barber Jesse Lee also knows you because of your brother.
Yep. So I knew her. We met her in Buffalo, like
when she was
12 years ago or something.
Yeah. So, I love. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge live music fan. I love music. I always wished I went and stayed with the trumpet and played music. I wish I did anything really outside of comics. I love comics. I love making comics. It's the industry that I despise, and I don't want to get too much into that.
Well, so I don't mean to hijack this for a second. So I want to go back because I don't feel like you get to like dig deep in yourself when you talk about this stuff because you have to, broad stroke it or whatever. But when it comes to comics, when did you start writing comics? Like I'm going to be a comic artist to do this. Yeah, not like published, but like you were doing it on your own, knowing that one day your goal was to be a comic writer.
When I was 18 years old, I wrote a comic called El Loco with a friend of mine who was an editorial cartoonist for one of the daily. Tucson used to have 2 daily papers, and then his folded, and they kept the afternoon paper, which became the only daily paper in Tucson. And his name was Arnie Bermudez. Arnie Bermudez. He would run a shop called Heroes and Villains, and I would go there every Wednesday, and they would also go there on Tuesdays for the sketch meetup. Who a friend of mine named Dave Williams, who's an amazing tattoo artist, just messaged me today saying he picked up Helm Greycastle. And it's wild because we were both like 18 years ago going to this shop, and now he's picking up my book. It's pretty surreal. Very, very grateful. And I wrote this comic in response to SB 1070, which was a law passed in Arizona that was allowing police officers and sheriffs to question people's citizenship, which is against federal law. And so there was a big uproar. Like all the cool bands boycotted Arizona for it. Like we didn't get a lot of good music, for like 2 or 3 years because a lot of bands were not down with it. So I wrote a comic and I published it for Tucson Comic-Con, and I was working as a Tucson Comic-Con organizer, and I was on the news and getting interviewed for newspapers and stuff, and I was like, hey, like I want to do this because I've always wanted to, but I knew that I could, and here we are.
So the reason I ask, when you were like, I wish I always did something else, right?
Right.
So my brain was wired that way because when I grew up, I was cartoons, action figures, video game person. And then Jakarta.
Yeah.
And then
Jono, here we go. Jono, thanks for watching. I know all the way in Jakarta. Jono is hosting a signing for Helm Greycastle for Ramat Handoko and Brian Valenza. And I wish I could fly out there and be there with them, but I hope there's pictures and videos. So thanks for watching.
Also, Jakarta's awesome. So the reason I kind of brought that digging up a little bit is because my background was like fun, larger than life imagination stuff. And then I got to a point where I had so many action figures, and my mom was like, hey, we should do a garage sale where you sell a bunch of these. Also, you should get into music like your brother is. And I'm like he would get like a guitar, and then I would get like 20 action figures, and I'd be like, you're an idiot. I got 20 things. You got 20. And then my parents were very much like, we need to get him out of the action figure thing. It's getting a little weird. So we did one garage sale where I sold all 300 in like one fell swoop. Like my neighbor bought all of my action figures.
For how much?
$1 a piece, so it was like $300. So yeah,
you got ripped off, dude.
Yeah. The good news is we kept our like Star Wars and Power Rangers and that stuff that my nephew is like breaking right now. So that's great. But it got to the point where my parents very much were like, you should do the music thing. This is like a more adult thing. So started playing drums, got super obsessed with that because I'm like, my brain, if I'm into something, it's way in it. And then for years, I like didn't do anything else. Like I didn't even watch sports. I didn't play sports or do whatever because I was like, well, I'm just music guy. I want to be good at music, so I can't do anything else. And then it was probably like 6 years ago or something where a bunch of my friends were like talking about comic stuff and getting back into all this stuff. And I was like, am I able to? Like, is that like a thing? That's weird. I don't know.
Dad?
And
Is
then,
this cool?
yeah, but my friend Kyle, who he worked for CBR for years and stuff, but he lives in Ann Arbor now. He gave me like a stack of comics, and then my friend
What's
Sam
Kyle's last name?
Fegley.
Okay, I think I know Kyle.
He worked for like Wizard back in the day, and
Yeah, I know Kyle.
yeah,
He's like writing books now.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he's doing like
Yeah.
stuff. He's a super good dude. He was like my early like comic mentor. So I still actually have his stack of books because he never asked for them back. So sorry, Kyle.
Yes, suck it, Kyle.
Yeah, you dumbass. But so I got that. My friend Sam Moore gave me a different stack that had like Brubaker's Captain America and like all this stuff in it. And it was pretty much ever gave me these like variety packs of this will get you stuff. Like this will get your brain ready. You pick the thing you want out of all these. So I started like Matt Fraction. I like him. Ed Brubaker's great. And I started like boop, 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 and like compiling what I wanted out of it. And then I was doing music and comics and marketing. And I started just like, you know what? Like Swellers is done. Like, cause we ended in 2015. So I'm like, I'm just going to pile on stuff I like. I don't give a shit anymore. I'm going to not stop myself from stuff. I'm doing like 50 things at all times now. But
Right.
The way I look at comics, because I came out of the music industry, is I completely understand that there's all these moving parts. It's very political. You have to bust your ass for years. And if you get your foot in the door, then the door opens a little bit more for you. But if you don't, you have to keep prying and hoping. And then if no one does it for you, you promote yourself and then it works
Right.
out, hopefully, right? So like in music, we were like the whiny, privileged crybabies because we're like, our friends got on record labels, we didn't. And then like our parents gave us the opportunity to like tour and stuff early on. So we had a head start. In comics, it's a very different thing because like if you're trying to just make a living out of it, it takes a long, can we swear? Sure, fucking time. And it got to the point where like I haven't made real money from comics at all. But I do it because I like it. And as a writer, I know I would rather any money that's involved go to the artists, at least for now, right? Because I haven't had like a big thing. So we have the opportunity to like write stuff as long as it's not soul consuming, and then allow cool creatives to like work with us and make our ideas a real thing. But and you've like walked around the whole, the industry being weird, right? Because you're in the industry, you're also writing, you're also doing these other things. I think what it all kind of comes down to like you put your head down, you do the work, and you assume the worst in a positive way, if that makes sense. So like if you are in control of promoting your own stuff and doing whatever, doing a show like this, right? Like you are choosing to do that, which is why people are seeing the things and that's why it's working. There's a lot of people who do an eighth of the steps you're supposed to do. And then they're like, everything sucks. Like no one takes this seriously. They all freak out.
Right.
So like music just pummeled my face into the ground to the point where I was like, I know what I'm getting into with comics,
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, yeah, I did stand-up comedy for 4 years and I got to open for Brian Posehn, and like I would get like, hundreds of dollars for 15 minutes of work or like 10 minutes of work or 5 minutes of work. And there was so much movement and it was all dependent on myself. And when I got into journalism, I was very lucky that I knew someone. They got me into a newsroom and it like streamlined. I was able to write more. I was doing got even a better job. I'm very lucky that I have a cool job in comics. Very lucky that it's with one of the best comic book publishers in North America, at least. Let's hold on, I feel like we should bring Jen in. Jen, if you want to be in this stream, please, I will send you a link and we can all have a talk. Did you make the jokes up on the spot? Yeah, most of the time it was. Yeah, I would do a lot of crowd work and just like have fun with people, offend people. I mean, that's the other thing is I did a lot of learning as an adult, as a comedian, learning what isn't really funny, what you shouldn't say, and growing like a lot of maturity
shock
came.
value versus substance, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you did see, I did see better results. All right, Jen, we'll do this together soon. But speaking of writing comics, and you are doing a comic, or you wrote a story for an anthology, right? Is that what I am hearing?
If I said no, would that be weird? Just put you on the
That'd
spot.
be very funny if you were just like, oh, I just really want to like promote this Kickstarter that
Like,
I have
what is
nothing
it?
to
Like,
do with.
yeah, I'm not in it. No, it's called Off Into the Sunset. It's an anthology. Liana's in it. Just pretty much everyone we know is in it, which is great. But our friend
Except
Brett
me.
Harshman, well, you know, I specifically asked for you to not be in it, just so we could talk about it. So it's an unbiased
that makes sense.
interview. Yeah, it's a journalistic
I'm glad.
integrity thing. You understand?
Yeah. No, I get it. No, so it's a collections of stories. That's like Western, but in the future.
Yeah. So essentially, it's all different colors of Western. That's a good way to put it. So ours, Fabian and I, who is one of the partners, we're doing a story that's like in the correct time period Western style. But then there's other ones that are like space Westerns, and like it kind of hits the whole spectrum of them. But I think everyone in comics has the phase where they're like, kind of want to do a cowboy thing, kind of want to do a Western thing. You know, like I played Redemption 2 and it like reshaped my brain, and I'm like, this is the best story ever. So like I kind of fell in love with that stuff from that game of all things. Which is why this was perfect, because I was like, I've always wanted to write that. Matt Emmons and I did a story called Monster Bounty, a different comic, which is my like space Western style thing. But yeah, this thing is super rad. Pretty much it's approaching the home stretch ish. So we're just trying to plug it, get a bunch of people to check it out. If you look at that list, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of cool people on it. And I mean, I'm from, like I said, Tucson, Arizona, where Tombstone was filmed, a lot of like John Wayne movies. So like you can't escape Western culture and history. You're like an hour away from Tombstone and Bisbee, which were like old Western mining towns. So yeah, I'm working on a Western too, and I can't wait to get that somewhere so we can, share that story. But it's funny because like I was thinking about this when I was riding my bike today. Like a lot of reviews for my book are like, I'm lost, I don't really get what's happening, because I'm incorporating Mesoamerican history, like Aztecs and all that. And if I did like, what if D&D meets a Western, I wouldn't have to explain what a Western is. You know what I mean? Like if I did D&D meets Greek gods, like I don't have to explain who Zeus is. You know what I mean? So it's easy to do a book like this, or easier. It's not like, easy, but it's easier to do a book like this because half of the work is already done, because we all have a connection to Red Dead Redemption or a Western movie that we love and stuff. So
well, yeah, they're established ideas, right? So like this itself is genre, whereas like Helm Greycastle is based on, it's stuff that's not readily taught in schools. So if I'm growing up in Michigan, I'm going to learn about Greek mythology and other stuff, but they're probably going to just leave that out, right? So what you're doing is introducing people to a whole world of things that already exists, but you get to create your own thing out of it, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, you don't even get to learn about this stuff in schools in Arizona. Like even when we're close to the border, which is horrible, like my history was robbed and kept from me. So as a 32-year-old man learning about stuff that I wish I'd learned my whole life, it's been an eye-opening experience. So,
Well, like even to put it more in perspective, right? So I took in like American public schools about 5 or 6 years of Spanish. And I was like, I'm going to be like fluent by the time I'm done. And then it's the school system itself that's already flawed to where it's just like, you get by. So now I could tell people, where's the library, turn left. And that's about it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
and I've very literally traveled the world and I've learned a sentence in each place, which is usually, where's the bathroom? I'm hungry and excuse me.
Money,
You know?
please.
Yeah.
Money, please.
but yeah, it's a very like heartbreaking thing. But I think what you're doing, just your range as a writer, you already have, and it's not like a shtick or anything. You're very literally going like, I'm introducing this. Like the fact that you don't even know this now means it's a new idea, and then you're putting it in the context of how people understand it, right? So like comics, like Aubrey Sitterson did like the comic book history of professional wrestling. If that were just a textbook, I would have been like, nah, I'm good. But then I was like, so
Right.
but I think that's what makes it more exciting. And then also you're tweaking these things, right? So you're creating your own story while introducing existing things. While like it's a Henry sandwich. Let's call it that.
Oh man, I could go for a sandwich right now. I just ate Taco Bell like an idiot.
They messed up my order the last 3 times I went, and my touring life was eating Taco Bell at least once a day for months at a time.
Because it was 99 cents.
Exactly, and it was the only like vegetarian fast food. So
are you vegetarian?
Mhm.
Oh wow.
Yep. So, and then I'm also lactose intolerant, so I would have even hyper specific. So I could do like pretty much I would get a bean burrito with potatoes, and then I would get 2 of them for $2, which was filling, and then I wouldn't have to eat till later, and then I'd get like a bag of like Snyder's buffalo pretzels at a gas station, and I'm like, dinner.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, when you hear the stories about touring life, it's rough, and I can't. I mean, I couldn't have done that. I mean, like it's somewhat similar to comic book conventions. Like you would eat crappy convention food once a day, and then hopefully, if you had enough, or if I had enough money, I'd be able to afford to go to dinner. And everybody in comics loves like going to secret dinners. You hear about that?
Yeah. I almost went to one at C2E2. I was sharing a table with Matt Emmons, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to this thing." I'm like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Oh, it's like there's like all the tables are already taken." I'm like, "Cool." And I just went somewhere else with my other friends.
It's so awkward when people do that. You're like, okay, like
what's so weird? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, because I'm so new to like actual comic convention world and not like local Michigan ones, like I look at everything like I'm on tour all the time. So like I could sit for like or stand for 15 hours and sell people stuff. Like I had to do that at Warped Tour in the sun, where like it was physically hard to exist, but you had to do it and then fall asleep for 5 hours on a bus and then wake up and then promote yourself all day because no one would watch your band anyway. So like I always had the like opening or middle band experience and all that stuff. So it became comfortable for me. But the uncomfortable part, and I'm sure you've felt this a million times, you're talking to one of your friends and then someone comes up and then they start talking and then no one introduces you. And then you're like, and then you just have to walk away. So
I love sitting somewhere at a con. I love watching that. like watching two people talk and then two people then talk, and then that a third person just looks around, pulls out their cell phone, and then they're like, I got it. Oh, I'll go. Yeah. You're just like, oh man, that's so rough. It happened to me all the time. It still does. It's weird how it's like piranhas, you know? Like comics is like piranhas. Yeah, you have to introduce yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or you introduce a person. But like comics will eat it, like people will just eat each other, and they'll eat like you just throw some blood or a piece of meat in the water, and there's like.
Well, so one thing I think about a lot is this came up somewhere on Twitter, but so in music, it was the A&R people from a label. So someone would show up to a show, and then every band would be like, and like everyone acts different, and it's weird. Or like someone from a famous band or whatever, and like everyone's posture changes. It like sucks the air out of the room, and everyone's like, I hope I'm right. I hope I look good. In comics, it's the editor. And only the comic creators, which is almost everyone vending there, are the people that see insert person X from publisher X walk by, and they're like, and they like try and do like the weird like waddle to get to them. But then they're like about to say something, and someone walks up, and then they just like stand like 5 feet away, like looking around. But they're the only person there. They're holding a portfolio for some reason. Like, you know, all this stuff is like where their mind is going, right? And I tell people this all the time. Like, I grew up with such intense anxiety that it's a joke to me now, to where I'm like, I'm going to do it. I don't care. And I just go into conflict just to see what happens. Just like really like intense things. And when it comes to that kind of thing, so once in a while I'll be like, if I could find some kind of like icebreaker person or whatever. So like Liana is wonderful for that. She's always just like bouncing around conventions. And
she's like a little ping pong, just
which is amazing.
Loves everyone. Everyone loves her.
And then you immediately have that, hey, what's up? So we at C2E2, like that's actually the first time. It was 2019 or the beginning of 2020, whenever it was, I don't know. But when someone was like, hey, the bar, like BarCon or whatever, that's how you meet people. And I remember like sitting down and like, there's some like big like Marvel comic creators, and then like an editor I recognize, and then something. And it's like me, my friend Sam, and my friend Josh, and we're like sitting there. And I was like, yeah, so this is like where people like network and stuff. And we're like looking around, and we're like, do you like walk up and just start talking to people? Clearly people are with their like significant others, like winding down after a day of being around. And I was like, maybe let's just like chill here and like see what happens. Yeah. So, but that's the kind of thing where it's like, if we're a music thing, I'd be the Liana just like frolicking around and like,
right.
But in comics, I'm so new in terms of like, you know, outside of like a Twitter version of this, like where I could just be like, hey, I'm blindly talking to you. Like in a real bar situation, I'm not going to say anything. Like unless I get someone to awkwardly like, hey, we're mutual friends on Twitter. Can you introduce me to that person? I want to talk to them more than you.
That is definitely comics in a nutshell. Going to the BarCon and then like awkwardly trying to find a good time to meet somebody, because you know that's their space to like see friends they haven't seen all day, see friends they only see once a year, and have the like the same kind of rapport that you have with someone new. It's like, how do you navigate through that? And that was really difficult in the beginning of my career, where like you probably get this. I was wondering if you get this, but like when I would do stand up, people would be like, oh, this is Henry, he makes comic books. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm here to like perform tonight. You know?
Yeah.
And then I'd go to Comic-Con and I'd be like, they're like, hey, this is Henry, he does stand up. And that's like, well, hey, I got a book. Like they never take you seriously in either like business, you know. They always like find a way to like bring you to humble you.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's intentional a lot of the time.
Oh no.
So my version of it being like when I'll talk about my stand-up story in a second too, because I tried twice and not so great. But that's when I found out, oh, I'm a writer. I'm not a stand-up performer. Or an actor. You know what I mean? But what was you said a thing right before that.
I said like they don't see you in that room as that person. They like see, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's the most familiar to them thing.
Yeah.
So when Swellers broke up, I was drummer. I was always drummer. That's all I did. Everyone knew me just as the drummer guy. Then I started a band called Baggage, where I was the singer and the bass player, and I wrote all the songs and I did all the stuff. And it was very literally called Baggage because of that situation you're explaining, where I'm like, people are going to yell, play Sweller's song, or like something like that, right?
Yeah.
So then I already had that in the back of my head where I'm like, if you call me a drummer, I'm going to stab you. I'm a bass player now. I'm not great at bass and I don't practice it, but I hold it and I look cool. And like, so I had this whole thing going on. And then after that, I started writing comics. And then I was like, well, yeah, I'm like a comic writer. And they're like, oh yeah, he used to be in this band, the Swellers. And then I would bypass two of the thing. And I'm like, no, but I want to be this thing now. The most humbling version of this I've ever had was I went to a house show in Flint, and it's just a bunch of people like trashed out of their minds, like crazy party house. I'm, of course, the only sober person because, to Liana's point in the comments, I started drinking like 2 years ago. So all of my band thing, I was completely dead sober, which is insane.
So the entire time you were in the Swellers, you were sober?
Literally going around the world to breweries and all this stuff and just being like,
water, please. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
I respect that. That's a lot. I mean, I couldn't do that.
That's why like it's funny when people are like, oh, you drink? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. And I'm like, no, it's like very new to me. Like this is exciting now. I'm not like a crazy guy. Like that's why I drink coffee all the time, because I'm just like hyperactive dude. But so with coffee company, with all of these things, I have like 50 titles at all times, but I never get the one that I want people to say. So I was at this house show, and this kid came up to me and he's like, I recognize you. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, he's going to say the Swellers. I'm like, yeah, cool, man, whatever. And he's like, you sold my dad you sold my stepdad a cowbell at Guitar Center. And I was like, yep. And I'm a Guitar Center cowbell salesman. I was like, fuck. But that's like one of those things where that was one of my most humbling moments, because I was like used to people saying a certain thing because I was never home. I was always on tour. Right. Then when I came home and stayed home, I was working at Starbucks and Guitar Center and all these things. So I was the guy who like made their latte or whatever. And I was like,
in between touring with the Swellers, you were working at Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
So first Guitar Center and then Starbucks, which was working at Guitar Center was brutal because it's like I literally have drum endorsements and stuff, and then I would be explaining like selling things to people, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't think you know what you're talking about, buddy. I want this one," and then they'd say this like crazy, super wrong stuff, and I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, man, cool."
Yeah, was it commission based?
The Flint, Michigan Guitar Center was commission based, but the drum section, an already failing store and the least important instrument in that store, it did so poorly that they didn't even give me a commission.
Wow.
So they're just like, you just get minimum wage. I'm like, I don't care. If I get the discount, that's fine.
Wow.
So, but that kind of comes back to like now where I'm on Twitter, for example, is a great thing where people don't know what the hell's going on when they follow me. I just talk to everyone all the time. That's like my thing. And it's an addiction. Let's just call it what it is. But I'm the guy who owns the coffee company to a lot of people. I'm the drummer of a band to a different section of people. And very rarely is someone recognizing that here's the 75 things I do at once. And I'm Jono, the through line through all of it. So it's very interesting because I can't have, there's no more ego left. There's no nothing. It's just, yeah, whatever you want. If you follow me, that's cool. I'm guy that you followed for thing X, you know?
Right. No, that's a good way to look at it. You know, I think that's somewhere I had to become more comfortable with who I was, because in Tucson I was a radio DJ, a journalist, a comedian, and I did so many things that I had to pick one, and I had to then realize that people, you know, will see me for whatever they want to see me as, and it's less important about how I want them to see me. And it's just more important with fulfilling what you want to do and being happy with what you're doing and putting out work that you're proud of.
Mm-hmm. And so for you, would you say number one thing is comic writer? That's how you would like to identify your work self?
I guess author would probably be it. Sure. You know, I think like that's what I'm mainly in the comic book industry full time now. So I think that's how people know me now. Um, and yeah, La Voz de Mayo, I think, kind of shifted that. And now with Helm, I think it's becoming more clear that this is what I am doing. And it's hard to change course. I mean, it's possible, but it would be really hard because of the last 6 years. This is what my life has been.
So if you don't mind me asking, so working for a publisher, but also writing, I know a lot of people that's like a tricky thing for a lot of people, where you're like, but I'm a writer. I want to be this, but I work here. So at one point I worked for CBR for one day, and then I went, I don't think I should do this. And then I got 50 other job freelance things.
Yeah.
But the reason I got out of it really quick was because I wanted to be colorist.
I should, honestly. I mean, but you're right. Like I did comics. I used to write for Comics Beat for 3 years, and that's what got me into a job as a journalist. And yeah, I mean, like, then I got back to another company that I don't want to say, and it was very much like, take this article and rewrite it for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah, this isn't what I want to do anymore, you know, because at Comics Beat, it was more organic, and I was like searching for things to write about, mainly independent comics that weren't being covered. So, yeah, it's just something that I'm like default always looking for stuff that nobody's talking about. Like I have to find books that are good. That, I mean, and this isn't a good example of what I'm saying, but I went to the Perky Nerd and I asked them, what's the comic that you're into? And they're like, well, a lot of people are liking this comic. And I said, no, I don't care about what everyone likes. I want to know what you like. And this is what they showed me. Lila Starr, The Many Deaths of Lila Starr by Ram B. This is a beautiful comic. And I am like, I can't believe Helm Greycastle debuted the same week this comic came out, because this, I mean, I love what we did, and I'm really proud of it, but like, it's always hard to like put yourself against your peers, you know what I mean? And like, for whatever reason, I try to be competitive in this and want to do better and just as good. And it's always good to be influenced by people that you respect. And comics is such a crowded field. We have a question. Why did you leave?
Oh, so the reason I did, it wasn't like a negative thing. One of my friends they pretty much just said, you have to be very careful if you want to be known as a writer, but you're working for someone who reviews things. So for example, I was in a touring band while working at Alternative Press, and some of the record reviews I did were of people I knew. And that conflict of interest, just like Spidey sense started going off. I'm like, this feels weird, you know? And what I started realizing is like on their end, all the reviews were always 4 stars. And I was like, okay, so this not CBR, this is Alternative Press that I used to write for. Because I was music journalism guy. As my band was starting to like do less, I was writing more. So that's how I got into it. Then I was like, well, I know comic stuff. I could do comic journalism. But what I was doing was doing the reverse order of what I did in music, where my life experience as a musician is what made my writing and music interesting. My lack of life experience in comics would, I think, skew my perception of how I was going about things to the point where I wouldn't want to seem like I was using it for something. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah, that is a thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so it just felt icky to me. And I was like, I don't think this is fair to other people who want to do the writing. Not in like some like snooty whatever way, but more in the sense of like, I think I need to have a day job in a thing that's not one of my passions so I can make sure I make it all work out. So thanks, Jen. Great question.
That is a good question, because there is a thing that I've heard where if you are writing about comics, you are known for that. And I think like that is kind of BS, you know, like if you want to write about comics, you should, because comics is a thing that like the ability to make money in the comic book industry is really difficult, as you said before. There's not a lot of people talking about comics, and when they do, they're not making a lot of money or any money.
Mm-hmm.
So, and from my perspective, a lot of people always say this, like, well, you work for a company and then you're getting published by the company. And it's like, there is no singular way or door in the comic book industry. Like you can go to school and be a dentist. You can go to the university and get a law degree. You can get a business degree. There is no like comics degree, you know. And how I found a way into this industry was learning from the best and working with the best. And what better way to figure out how to get published is if you're working with people that are publishing the best. Mm-hmm. Like I'm very lucky that I like the background of what we're looking at right now is art by Stepan Sajic, who is famous for Sunstone and Harleen, and he's did the second cover for Helm Greycastle, which FOC's tomorrow. So if you can let your comic book show, let them know. Jennifer, yes, you're right. When you do write for companies, a lot of the time it's not for a lot of money. And I'm not privileged of what CBR pays or if they pay, because a lot of comic book websites don't pay. And I was lucky to have found a way to make money off that by talking about comics when I was writing for Image Plus with David Brothers and Sasha Head, who I called in all my emails Hermanos y Cabeza.
I know that. Are you asking me to say it?
No.
I understand what that was.
Head and hands. What? No, Head and Brothers. There we go. That's what it was. So yeah, no, I mean, yeah, like so that's the thing. Like there is less opportunities to make money in this industry, and it's really difficult. And Kickstarter you're working on, hopefully you get some scratch off that. Helm Greycastle wouldn't be possible without the Kickstarter backers that we had for number one, and same with Lavos de Mayo. So there are ways to make money and to do this for a living. And I'm lucky and have lived in poverty for so long that I can afford to do this and figure out a way to make, like you said before, get everyone paid while they're fulfilling a dream and an idea that I just thought of off the top of my head.
And on a very hippy dippy note, because I like always ending on that. I think a lot of people are very good at talking themselves out of the things they want to do because of money, because of time, because of a fear of not being as good as other people or whatever, right? But if you don't take the first step into doing that thing you want to do, you might never do it. So a lot of people have gotten accidentally complacent in the sense of, I want to write a comic. So I wanted to write a comic really bad, and a bunch of my friends did. So the very first one we did, I remember it was during the Flint water crisis, and I was like, we should do something that helps people. We should set a strict deadline. We should do it for charity, and I'm going to pair everyone up so you don't have to think about it. So I got 5 artists, 5 writers, put them together. We did a big Flint charity comic, and it ended up like a lot of people heard about it. I remember I was at C2E2 just as a fan. I think it was 2017 or 2018. I forgot when, but I actually went to the Marvel panel and I was asking a question, and I brought up, we're doing this comic. It's to be called Hope, a comic for Flint. And I said it for the first time, and I was like, I said it, like, this is real now. And I think that's the thing, that feeling of it being real and it finally existing. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is doing the work, finishing the work, and making sure everyone does their share, right? So my advice to people is find a way and be creative, but always start small and expand from there. So write a panel, have someone do a panel, then have someone do a page, then do a different story that's 4 pages, right? So it took me years to get, like, again, plugging whatever, but like The Inevitables is the first like 22-page Jono wrote it comic. And it took a very long time to get there because there's a lot of money involved in making a comic, as you know, because all of us have to do Kickstarters or find publishers or do other like roundabout ways. But like it's all about the process, and you keep getting better until you get to that point. You working at a publisher, it wasn't you having some like sneak attack or like privilege of having working there. It was more you literally got to see the best work coming in, and by proxy learn what was quality stuff. What did you want to see? What was selling well? What, like, all of that information, whether you wanted to or not, was being put in your brain, and it came up with this thing. So then now you're a fully refined comic machine, you know? And that's not because of you got lucky. Like, that's all bullshit. Like, you did the work and you had passion and you got to that point, and then you made awesome comics. So I just hope people know that that's a thing where, yes, the industry is very hard to break into, but you don't have to play by the rules of the industry to be in it.
Right.
I did the same shit with music, where there weren't any punk bands in Flint, and we were like one of the like, not one of the first, but in that time span, we were like, we can't play with any other people. Let's just do it. And then the shows were like a ska band, a punk band, a metalcore band. Like, none of it made sense, but we made our own scene and our own community. Comics has that too. Like, Henry, the group you and I are in, is full of people that didn't really know each other before, and now we talk every day. So that's that kind of thing that's so much bigger than these personal setbacks, right? Like, do a black and white comic and do a 5-pager. You are now a comic writer because you did that, you know? So I just hope people kind of like take that in and remember it's a real thing.
Yeah, no, and thanks for reminding me, because that's something I used to say all the time. But over time, I think it got beat out of me. You know, there's just but yeah, you're right. Like, I love comics. I love making them, and I think it's such a for me, it's the most rewarding thing in the world. And getting to meet people like yourself, I feel lucky. So I think that's a good note to end this on, where you have 1,000, 10 million thousand more followers than me. But if anyone's watching and wants to keep talking to you because you love talking to people, where is the best place to do that?
Jono Diener, just there we go. Look at that. I think that shows up on the same thing. But anyway, at Jono Diener on Twitter is probably the best place. And I have a link tree with all my other things: Rootless Coffee, Off Into the Sunset, The Inevitables, all that good stuff. So if you find me, all of the stuff will follow.
There you go. That's it. And I should have had a ticker this whole time, and I didn't. I feel this was definitely thrown together last minute, just because I wanted to promote my book, but also promote someone else. You know,
Henry, it's Diener.
Oh, did I? Oh man, hold on. Let me fix that.
That's my new entrepreneurial venture.
How about that? That's it. Right. There you go. There we go. All right. Jono, so good to see you and talk to you. I'll talk to you later. We'll talk soon. Right?
Comic world.
Goodbye. That was Jono. Yeah, I talk to Jono every day. I was thinking about this earlier, where you meet people and you want to like keep in touch with people, but you don't always talk to them forever. And they are in your life for like a hot minute and that's great. And then they leave your life. I think they should really teach that to kids because you never like stay in contact with people, your entire life. I don't know. There's something there. Oh, there we go. Jen is one of the best people. Follow Jen. So yeah, we'll leave you with this. Helm Greycastle number 2. FOC's tomorrow. It's an exciting continuation of the story we're telling. There is the role-playing game by Jeffrey Golden with art by Jen Vaughn. There, like I tell people, the inside, front, and back cover are maps. I'm encouraging people to rip the interior pages out so you can place your miniatures on them when you're playing. I think that's fun. And I think we should rip more comics up. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this, hit like and share it. If you don't like this, don't tell me and don't tell anyone. Just keep that hate in yourself and really try to figure out how to stop hate, because hate's bad, and you should see someone to talk about that hate. I mean, that's or don't. Just continue hating things like me. We'll be back someday, and I don't know when, but it will be fun, and it's going to be with Jen. So Jen, get ready. We're going to do this, and we're going to get serious. Talk to you all later. Goodbye now.